Our collusion and corruption segment tonight, the American people deserve answers on former FBI Director James Comey's memos. That's what Republican Senator Chuck Grassley is demanding. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, here's what happened. Former FBI Director James Comey gave classified information to a friend to leak to the press in order to prompt the appointment of Robert Mueller as independent counsel. Not only is this illegal to leak classified information, this is the politicalization of the FBI, plain and simple, and James Comey should be held responsible for it. With me now to break this down, former Secret Service officer Gary Byrne. Gary, thanks for joining me today, and thank you for your service to our nation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, Gary, you just published a new book called Secrets of the Secret Service, The History and Uncertain Future of the U.S. Secret Service. I want to ask you about James Comey and the FBI in just a moment, but first of all, tell me about your book. What do you mean when you say an uncertain future?
Well, the Secret Service, is a very proud organization, but it has a lot of problems. Over the years, the Secret Service has let its management swell up to a point where they really don't function well. And the people look at the Secret Service as this great organization, and it has a lot of problems. It has a lot of manpower problems, and it has a lot of discipline problems. It's basically go back to the Secret Service has a bad management setup, and they treat their employees very poorly, and the Secret Service is basically collapsing in front of us. And those aren't my words, those are Congress's words.
Right, which is scary to think about since the Secret Service is responsible for many other things, but also for protecting the President of the United States here. Now, part of this, you say, this mismanagement, if you will, or the politicalization, you said it's not just exclusive to the Secret Service, that you saw this while you were serving in the Clinton White House. You saw this through other agencies, particularly in the FBI. Gary, tell us what you saw.
I did, yeah. My time at the White House during the Clinton administration, for instance, a lot of your listeners might not remember this scandal, this Clinton scandal, but it was Filegate. 900 FBI files, raw data files on American citizens, ended up in the Clinton White House. And nobody really knew how it happened. I know how it happened because the Clinton's security person for personnel security, Craig Livingstone, asked for the files. And the FBI representative at the White House at the time refused to give them to him. So he picked up the phone, he called down the FBI headquarters, and those files showed up. And then years later, or a short time later, they were discovered. And that, to me, was the beginning of the corruption of the FBI and similar things that I saw with the Secret Service, where these high-ups became political pawns to the Clinton administration.
Right, and I guess from an inside perspective, talk to me about the mindset. I mean, when you have a president or an administration that's asking an agency, the FBI, to do political bidding for them, what does the FBI agent do? Do they refuse to do it? Do they not have a choice? Did the Clinton administration already appoint people that they knew would do their bidding? When did this start?
They slowly break it down. When the Clintons first got there, the first thing they started doing was they started breaking down the security system that was set up by the FBI and the Secret Service that went back to the Eisenhower administration. And this was the system they used to hire their employees for their administration. And they wanted these people in no matter what their backgrounds were. And the Secret Service and the FBI had these rules. If you had committed certain types of crimes, or you had defrauded a government agency, you weren't allowed in. And they wanted them, they berated them until they broke down that system. And that was the beginning of it in my eyes and from what I saw.
Right, so essentially then, the politicalization of the FBI was more or less intentional. It was a slow process. This idea of the deep state, I mean, it sounds like such a conspiracy theorist term here, but it seems like if you do that, the inevitable result is what we're seeing today, where the former FBI director actually gave classified information to a friend in order for the friend to give it to the press, in order for, I guess, to gin up public outcry enough to get his political wish that Robert Mueller be appointed to actually come to fruition.
Yes, and again, I agree with you. It goes back to that, to what I saw in the early 90s. They slowly break it down, and these are the same people that were there. And that's one of the problems when they talk about the deep state. There's a term inside the government called double dipping, where they go from one job to the other, these executives. And some of these executives stay in the government service, for instance, the FBI for so long. They were there in the very beginning with the Clintons. They're there now, and they have been compromised, whether it's been compromised by promise of promotion, or in one case, we know that an FBI agent's wife who was running for office in Virginia, was given $750,000. Come on, that doesn't pass the smell test anywhere.
No, I mean, no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And talk to me about this from your personal perspective. Now, we know that there are at least 3 FBI agents, Peter Strzok, Jeannie Rhee, and Andrew Weissman, as well as a Department of Justice official named Bruce Orr, who were embroiled in political bias associated with either the Hillary Clinton email investigation and or the Robert Mueller special counsel investigation into Russian collusion in the 2016 election. Now, Democrats are arguing that FBI agents or Department of Justice officials, anybody who works in Washington, D.C., by nature is going to have a political opinion. Any, I think, well-informed adult probably has a political opinion. But when does opinion become bias that impacts the job, and how do you police against that?
Well, the obvious signs are what we've seen. You know, for instance, like I just mentioned, the FBI agent whose wife was running for office, and the money was donated to her campaign, $750,000. He should have immediately recused himself and gone public with that. But they don't, because, and this is very important, the reason they don't is because they're used to getting away with it, because the Clintons and them have had this deal set up, in my opinion, what I witnessed over the years, for many, many years. Goes back to the early 90s. They know they're never going to be held accountable, and this is why it keeps happening.
Right. It's absolutely shocking. Your inside look at this. I so appreciate, Gary, you sharing this with us all. Guys, the book is called Secrets of the Secret Service, The History and Uncertain Future of the U.S. Secret Service. Gary, thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate it, sir. All right, you have 1 minute to tweet me at Liz_Wheeler before we're back with Tyler Grant to grade President Trump's foreign policy 1 year into his first term. From North Korea, ISIS, Iran, Israel, the Paris Climate Accords, and more, we're going to break it all down. See you in a moment.